Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, ever merciful. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all. Welcome to tonight's lecture organized by the UK Talim Department. As per our tradition, we will start our program with a recitation from the Holy Quran, and I request our brother Hakim Mensa to deliver tilawat and English translation.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا إنا نخاف من ربنا يوما عبوسا قمطريرا. The verses I've just recited before you are from Holy Quran chapter 76, verses 9 to 11, Surah Al-Dar, translation. And they feed for love of him, the poor, the orphan, and the prisoner, saying, we feed you for Allah's pleasure only. We desire no reward, nor thanks from you. Verily, we fear from our Lord a frowning and distressful day. Thank you very much.
Jazakallah Hakim Sahib. This is a very pertinent verse, especially with regards to tonight's lecture. Tonight we have the pleasure of being joined by Dr. Hafiz Ahmad, Dr. Aziz Ahmad Sahib, I beg your pardon, who will be delivering a lecture on humanitarian services in Palestine. Dr. Sahib is serving as chairman of Humanity First UK. He also serves as a board member of Nusrat Jahan UK. He works with the NHS in Yorkshire as a GP trainer with interest in palliative care and medical education. He previously served as the longest serving vice president of Majlis Khuddam al-Ahmadiyya UK. As always, you will have the opportunity to ask questions towards the end. And please type your questions into the live chat and kindly ensure they are relevant to today's topic. It gives me great pleasure to call Dr. Aziz Sahib to deliver the lecture on humanitarian services in Palestine. Dr. Sahib, Jazakallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Kamal Sahib, Hakim Sahib, and viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Jazakallah for having me on. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. So I've been asked today to share with you my thoughts on humanitarian services in Palestine, specifically with reference to the Ahmadiyya Muslim community and who via the Ahmadiyya Muslim community's NGO Humanity First, which I represent here today. I'm going to try to give you a whistle-stop tour of the services within Palestine. But prior to that, I want to put it into some context, some historical context for viewers, and as a reminder for our viewers. I'll share with you my few slides. So when we talk about Palestine, what we're talking about in legal terms is the occupied Palestinian territories. The historical significance of that is the landmass known today as Israel, Palestine. In the 1940s, during the Second World War, was run and maintained by the Ottoman Empire, and the Ottoman Empire, which then came to an end at the conclusion of the Second World War. Now, following that, at that time, it was handed over to the winning Allied powers, and the land of Palestine was given over via a League of Nations resolution to the British, to Great Britain, and it was classed as the Mandate of Palestine. So the plan was for the British authorities to manage that area and eventually hand it over to the dwellers of that area. And there are historical complexities within that, in that there was a promise for the persecuted Jews from Europe that had been heavily persecuted by Nazi Germany, for them to have a homeland, and that promise was given to them by the British state. And simultaneously, the Arab population of Palestine was also had the expectation of having independence. So within this complex nature, is the historical background to where we are today, and I want to share that a little bit of that with you. So the land of Palestine itself, it came then to the United Nations to discuss as to what is to be done with it, and a plan for partition was made to partition it between an Arab state and a Jewish state, and this was the United Nations plan for partition in 1947. And you can see there on your slide that the orange area was to be a new Jewish state, and the yellow area was to be a new Arab state. And at this time, the reason I mentioned the historical context is that the Ahmadiyya Muslim community had a significant part in those times that it played in terms of advising and guiding the Arab population pre-partition, and during the debate on partition, one of its most ardent servants, Hazrat Chaudhry Muhammad Zarifullah Khan, who was serving as the Foreign Secretary of Pakistan, who spoke very forcefully on the partition plan, and he presented the concerns about long-term how this could possibly have a damaging effect for both the Jewish population and the Arab population. And Hazrat Chaudhry Sahib spoke a very detailed analysis of the historical context of that land and the plan for partition and the risks to the future for both peoples. And this is an historic address in the General Assembly, 28th of November 1947, which is open for all to study and read. But I want to share with you just one quote where he starts, and it summarizes a lot of the movements at the time. He states, when at the start of his address, addressing the UN, that this is a solemn moment, solemn in the history of the world, in the history of this great, let us hope at least, great organization. The United Nations is today on trial. The world is watching and will see how it acquits itself again. Perhaps not so much from the point of view of whether partition is approved or not approved, but from the point of view of whether any room is to be left for the exercise of honest judgment and consciousness in decisions taken upon important questions. And why I state that at the beginning is, although I'm here to talk about the humanitarian services within Palestine, but this address was, you could say, was a deeply humanitarian address, because irrespective of the rights and wrongs of the question of the future of that land, there were key humanitarian points of justice for peoples across the world and for organizations such as the UN that are sanctioned and are actioned with providing justice and equity and humanitarian services. So this is a little bit of context that I wanted to share. Bringing us now to the current time. And we see in the history of the world that partition plan was not agreed upon by the Arab nations, and conflict then arose for a number of months. War ensued. The State of Israel came into being in 1948, and there were remnants of Arab quarters. And eventually, to the current time, varying peace initiatives, and what we're left with now, which are the occupied territories of Palestine, the West Bank and Gaza. And it is in these territories that I'm today going to share with you the humanitarian service that Humanity First has been able to serve. And I'm showing you the initial map of the West Bank. So the West Bank here labeled as Palestine, and you can see it with reference to the original map, is, according to the latest peace initiative, which are the Oslo Accords in the 1990s, what you actually have left within the West Bank are three areas termed Area A, Area B, and Area C. Areas A and B, which are effectively the brown and the purple, are areas where the Palestinian population and the refugee population are permitted to reside. 60% of the West Bank, which is termed Area C, which is the grey area, is actually termed under those accords military area, which is governed and controlled by the Israeli authorities. So you can see the West Bank is effectively like a cheese board, like a Swiss cheese piece, where you've got small segments of populations. And it's important to understand this when you understand how humanitarian provision is provided by varying NGOs and Humanity First in this context. Just take that slide away. So that is the background of the territory, which is the West Bank. And then on the other hand, you have Gaza, the Gaza Strip. And the Gaza Strip that you saw from the original map is a small strip, 25 miles long, about 3 to 7 miles wide. So the two territories have differing humanitarian needs due to their geographic and political situations. So the West Bank is effectively run by the Palestinian Authority. The Gaza Strip is run since 2007, 2008 by the de facto government, which is the Hamas government, which is termed a terrorist organization by most of the world and by Israel. As a result of that, a blockade was imparted on Gaza, land, air, and sea blockade by the Israeli authorities. It is that blockade that has led to huge humanitarian needs for the 2 million plus population within the Gaza Strip. At the same time, the humanitarian needs in the West Bank are very different. They're primarily due, as you can see, to the separation of small enclaves within the West Bank. So this is the background to the needs within the occupied territories. And I'm now going to share with you a 5-minute video which will give you a whistle-stop tour of the services that Humanity First has tried to provide. And then after that video, I will share with you some of the details of some of those services. I'm now going to share with you this video, if it's okay with the organizers, and I will just play that.
Hello, we're here with Humanity First in the Holy Land.
Humanity First has continued with its efforts to provide humanitarian assistance in Palestine with a visit to Gaza to review some of the projects and meet our partners on the ground. The humanitarian needs in Gaza pose a huge challenge for the population there, with access to clean water, health services, and employment, a major concern for the population of 2 million in the Gaza Strip.
Clean water in Gaza has always been a problem. Working with Humanity First, we are now providing clean water through reverse osmosis systems.
Over 97% of the water in Gaza is unsafe to drink. Humanity First, with its partners, has been able to instill 2 reverse osmosis water desalination units in hospitals and health centres in Gaza City. These units use the latest technology to purify the unsafe water from the polluted Gaza aquifer.
Our donors back in the UK and across the world are very, very passionate about clean water, particularly for the people in Gaza.
The Friends Benevolent Society Hospital benefited from one of these units, providing clean water for over 8,000 people each month, as well as a public fountain outside the hospital entrance. The project not only met the urgent humanitarian need of clean water, but it also helped support women's employment. With 50% unemployment in the Gaza Strip, many families struggle to make ends meet. Humanity First has looked at sustainable employment support for needy families through our Feed a Family program, and working with ANERA, we have been able to support families with gardens, allowing them to grow vegetables for their own consumption as well as to sell on.
أكلنا وبيعنا منه وأكلنا مول في البيت كانت منه. طبعا هاي الزرعة الثالثة مش الأولى ولا الثانية. كنا نزرع بندورة، خيار، زرعنا في رمضان الخس، الجرجير، البندورة.
Due to the humanitarian situation, those with disabilities or learning difficulties unfortunately struggle the most with limited and facilities. Humanity First has established a modern IT lab for the visually impaired in North Gaza. This lab, open to students and the public, includes the latest Braille technology equipment, from Braille printers, software, computers, etc., to open up the outside world for those who would otherwise be severely restricted.
وكثير سعيدة إنه حوصل رسالتي للأطفال وللأشخاص اللي بعانوا من نفس الوضع اللي أنا فيه، وكنت سعيدة كثير إني حوصلهم رسالة إنهم يكونوا أقوياء ويتحدوا المجتمع وما يخافوا. أكيد هم بيقدروا يعملوا وبيقدروا يعملوا أشياء ويوصلوا اللي بدهم إياه وأكثر من الأشخاص العاديين.
Medical support has also been provided, including emergency supplies of medicines, dialysis filters for children, as well as oxygen. Work is ongoing to provide training and capacity building support for the doctors in Gaza.
For 14 years, they have not been able to cross outside of Gaza and update their medical knowledge. I am sending this message through our trusted partner, Humanity First, and I am talking to all those medical volunteers out there that are willing to help. With your help, we can train staff at this unit and also at other niche subspecialties.
للأسف إحنا الحرب بتتكرر كل مرة بنواجه نفس المشاكل دائما مستمرة، عدم توفر الأدوية بشكل سريع إلا من خلال مؤسسات مانحة.
فالحمد لله كان عندنا موجودة مؤسسة Humanity First اللي وفرت لنا ولبت هذا النداء بشكل سريع من خلال ماب UK، خاصة الأدوية اللي بنحتاجها في الحرب سواء أدوية تخدير أو عمليات أو تطهير، كان التوفير سريع.
Here we are in Rafah, in southern Gaza near the Egyptian border, looking at a marginalized camp. Let's have a look in more detail.
The visiting team were able to witness firsthand the huge humanitarian needs amongst many of the refugee and Bedouin communities living in makeshift camps with poor sanitation and limited access to water, healthcare, and education.
Humanity first, serving mankind. Humanity first, we live to serve.
So I hope that give you a whistle-stop tour of some of the services, and I'm now going to talk about them in a little bit more detail, just for the viewers' information. So firstly, the needs you've seen there from that video. There is immense poverty. There is more than nearly 50% of the population, at least in Gaza, is unemployed due to the impact of the blockade on the economy. There is a huge water crisis. Unfortunately, unbeknown to many of us here in the West, over 97% of the water in the Gaza Strip is not drinkable. It's poisoned and it's polluted. There are numerous factors for that. In terms of the main water treatment plant does not get sufficient power. The underground aquifer is in itself polluted by overuse. The infrastructure, both the municipal water infrastructure and the sewage infrastructure, is unfit for purpose. It's very dilapidated, been damaged by regular conflict and warfare. So this leads to effectively all the water not being fit to drink. So the question arises: what do people drink, and where do they drink from? So people buy their water. They buy bottled water, which comes from the outside, and they have no other choice, and that poses a huge economic burden. So water is an essential need. So they have very little choice. They have to buy that water, and then other things give, such as cost of education, medicine, other things. To try to alleviate the water crisis, many humanitarian actors, NGOs, including ourselves in Humanity First, aim to work to try to provide desalination units and reverse osmosis units, as you've seen in that video, to try to provide clean water. And we work with our close friends and partners, ANERA, to provide water desalination units, and we've provided 3 so far, which are together providing over 50,000 people a month with clean, portable water using the latest technology, as you've seen a glimpse in that video, to provide clean water. The other area is one of agriculture and food provision. This is a major challenge in terms of for people not to have access to vegetables to grow. And again, Humanity First, working with its partner ANERA, we have looked to provide what are termed roof gardens, and you will have seen a glimpse of those in that video, where people have their own polytunnels. They're able to grow fruit and vegetables with limited water supply, with a technology that allows minimal use of water, hydroponic agriculture. And it allows families, a large extended family of approximately 20 people, these gardens allow them not only to provide vegetables for their own sustenance, but it also allows them to sell these vegetables onwards in the market to actually provide an income, which can help provide milk, eggs, help provides towards costs of education. The other area that you will have seen in that video is services for those that are disabled, services for those that have got restricted access to mainstream facilities. Those people that are visually impaired are particularly at risk and are particularly challenged within the occupied territories, especially in the Gaza Strip. You can imagine if you walk through parts of the strip where roads are not fit, pathways are not fit, and if you are visually impaired, you are going to struggle. And also access to education, access to services for those that are visually impaired or blind is severely restricted. We can imagine for ourselves here living in the United Kingdom that it can feel very limited if you are deprived of your vision. You can imagine how it can feel in the Gaza Strip. So we, by God's grace, have been able to set up an information technology lab for those people that are visually impaired with our partners, the Al-Quds Open University in the north of Gaza, which essentially uses the latest Braille technology to give access not only to students at the university, but the wider public. So there are no restrictions on who can access these services. And it allows them to access the online world, Braille technology, using Braille keyboards, using the latest Braille printers. And it really opens up a whole world for them, which they otherwise would have been restricted from. And there are many, many success stories with these labs, in that there are students that have worked through those labs and have now been other qualifications. There are students that have then gone on to gain masters and are now actually teaching at that university. So not only has it opened up an avenue of reaching out to the outside world, it's also opened up a self-sustainable employment opportunity for many of the students that have come through these services. The other area I want to describe is again education. It's one of student grants. So for the last number of years, we have tried to support undergraduate students both in the West Bank and in the Gaza Strip that would otherwise would not be able to afford undergraduate university education. And we've tried to financially support them to support their year one, year two education within those areas. The other area that I want to look at is self-sufficient employment. Again, you've heard the old adage, give a fisherman a fishing rod and he will fish, giving a fish and he'll eat the fish, and that's it. So we've looked at employment in terms of providing people either a lump sum to set up a business, be that a farming business, livestock, sheep, or to set up in a small business venture in terms of, let's say, a small corner shop to actually earn employment. And these self-sufficient employment grants have been very, very successful. It's allowed people to stand on their own feet and allowed people to earn an income to support their own families. The other area that I want to relay before I bring it to a close, and I can see there's many questions coming forward. The other area is one of medical support. Again, you'll have seen a glimpse in the video. During the conflict in May last year, there are huge medical needs for the provision of oxygen in an emergency, dialysis filters for children, acute drugs and medical provision. Again, we worked with many partners, including Medical Aid for Palestinians, a very prominent UK NGO that we partner with, to provide emergency medical supplies to where they're needed most. So this, I hope we're coming up to 7 o'clock now. I hope this has given you a flavor of some of the activities that we have embarked upon on the ground. And I must commend our partners, our Humanity First volunteers, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community within Israel and in the occupied territories, our partners Anera and MAP, and all the donors of Humanity First and the Ahmadiyya Muslim community across the world who have really gone above and beyond to help support these projects. And I hope I've been able to do justice to share with you just a glimpse of some of the work that your efforts have been able to deliver on the ground. Thank you. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah, Dr. Sahib. That was quite informative and quite pertinent as well, especially with all that's going on around the world nowadays. This lecture is quite important, and the fact that we have to play our role in supporting those in need. So Jazakallah for a very educational lecture. And I'm certain that this would have highlighted the important points comprehensively. So may Allah bless you. With your permission, we will go on to read out the questions so that you may share with us your insights into these matters.
Yes, no, please, no problem.
Okay, so the first question says, has language, religion, or any other factor ever been a barrier in offering support in Palestine or elsewhere?
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you to the questioner. The simple answer is no. So language and religion in Palestine specifically has never been a barrier. The languages spoken there are Arabic and Hebrew, and our teams speak fluent Arabic and Hebrew. English is pretty much an international language that is spoken, and most of our teams speak English very well. So language has not been an issue at all. In terms of religion, essentially the Holy Land, as we're all aware, is the seat of the Abrahamic faiths. So we have the Christian faith there catered for, the Jewish faith, and the Islamic faith. So all three of the Abrahamic religions are very much there within the Holy Land, and that there has never been a barrier to our provision of humanitarian service in Palestine. Yes, humanitarian agencies like Humanity First and others have to adhere to international humanitarian law. They also have to work within the framework of the governing authorities in the lands where we work. And in this case, we work closely with and we adhere to the requirements that are put upon organizations by the Israeli authorities and by the Palestinian authorities. And we ensure that we fulfill all the legal requirements that are required for us to be able to function in those parts. And in terms of the second part, where the question mentions elsewhere, again, across the rest of the world, in Africa primarily, South America, the rest of the Middle East, Southeast Asia, the same applies. The same applies. We're very blessed with our volunteer base that we are able to cover a huge multitude of languages, and many of our workers are indigenous to those lands themselves, thanks to having a broad base from the Ahmadiyya Muslim community as a volunteer base. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. Jazakallah. We have many to go through. So the next one says, Jamaat Ahmadiyyat has often been falsely accused of not supporting the Palestinians. Where do you think this allegation comes from, and what examples can be provided to debunk this myth?
Yes, an interesting question. Again, the opponents of the Muslim community historically have accused the community of a number of things, and this particular accusation of not providing services for the Palestinian people. I hope the lecture has been able to share to your audience a glimpse of the services, the humanitarian services that Humanity First has carried out, is carrying out, and is continuing to carry out. So the work speaks for itself. The work speaks for itself, and I urge anybody that would require any further information to visit on the ground the activities in the West Bank, in Gaza, in Haifa in Israel. Also, the Ahmadiyya community has been there since the 1920s, serving all populations. So I think the proof of the pudding is the reality on the ground for you to see and speak to. Our own website, hfuk.org, you can see a glimpse of some of the work that we carry out.
Jazakallah, Dr. Sahib. And this is quite a question that was on my mind, so it's on other people's mind as well. How can viewers support the work of Humanity First in Palestine and other places?
Yes, primarily we are in deep need of your prayers. The God Almighty blesses these humble efforts. No organization can function without monetary donations, and finances are an essential, and any support is welcome. And you can support via going onto our website, hfuk.org/donate, where you will be able to donate to our humanitarian services on the ground in all areas. So that is an area where you're more than willing and more than able to donate. And if you have any questions, you can also contact us via the website. We can share with you some further details of the work.
Jazakallah. And there's a question from earlier. Is the water in the Gaza Strip poisoned from natural causes or human activity?
Very good question. It's a mixture of both, actually. The natural causes are the overuse of the aquifer, because you have a growing population in a very, very enclosed space. So that has polluted the natural aquifer. Then you've got man-made situations. The regular conflict there has damaged infrastructure, has damaged the pipe networks, has damaged the power stations that run to try to desalinate and purify the water. So it's twofold, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Jazakallah. So those are the questions we have got. There's one final question. Are there any particular inspiring examples of response to Humanity First's efforts on the ground that you can share? What impact has your work had on Palestinian individuals and families and society in general? I know, obviously, from the lecture you have mentioned what Humanity First is doing on the ground, but the first part of the question is about inspiring examples.
I'll try my level best. There are umpteen examples of young children, young men, young girls that have been able to have a better life, a better education as a result. I'll share one example without mentioning the individual's name. One of our scholarship students who was able to gain undergraduate education as a result of a Humanity First scholarship. He achieved amazing results at that level, and as a result of that springboard, and by God's grace, he was able to expand his education in that he received then a British Council scholarship to come to the United Kingdom to gain his master's, and now he is hoping to gain a PhD program. So this is a sign of real empowerment within the Palestinian youth and a real success story on the ground with small and simple help and assistance that have been provided by you, the listeners, and you, the donors. I have a quote here that I've just managed to dig out recently. It's by an actual Christian Palestinian pastor who, when he looked at all the work and the impact on the ground, he stated, God bless all your great work. It is excellent what you do. May God Almighty be with you every step of the way. May all your future projects be successful. May God always bless you and protect you and take care of your NGO. Together, hand in hand, we can give hope for successful progress in serving humanity. So that was a quote from a Christian pastor friend in the West Bank. So these were just some examples off the top of my head that I can relay, but there are countless examples. There are families that struggle to afford bottled water, who now are able to access free water as a result of the desalination units that have been installed. There are families that are now able to sell produce to be able to afford school fees, to be able to afford school books for their children, for their offspring. So these are a few of the glimpses that I'm able to share with you, but there are countless others.
Jazakallah, Dr. Sahib. So that was our final question. This is just a question, a curiosity question from myself. Are there Jewish Palestinians?
Yes. There are Jewish Palestinians. There are Christian Palestinians. There are Muslim Palestinians. So yes, the Holy Land is a very vibrant mix of different faiths and different cultures. Sadly, the political situation has left them in a challenging situation. However, people are people across the world, and people share love and compassion amongst each other.
Oh, wonderful. Jazakallah. Obviously we've come to the end of the questions. Our viewers, thank you very much for joining us today. As always, we would have we're going to have again a lecture next week, and remember we've got the Urdu one on Mondays and the English ones on Tuesdays. These are at 6:30 p.m. May I request Dr. Sahib to lead us in silent prayer, please?
Thank you. Please, if I can ask you to join me in silent prayer.
Okay.
Ameen.
Ameen.
Jazakallah, thank you for having me on.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Sahib. Jazakallah for your time.